Hello, Exiles. This is Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming, and welcome to another Path of Exile build guide. This is for a League starter, very powerful League starter, something I've done videos on in the past. I'm a big fan of this build overall. This is, of course, Herald of Agony. You've seen it many, many times. I'm going to show a couple of different versions of this build. I have an old character here, back when I played the build a little bit differently, but this is going to be closer to what I'm going to play at League Start, and then I'm going to transition into a newer version of this build, which I'll show off in a moment. But yeah, this is going to be an Ascendant in both cases. In this particular version, I am not running cluster jewels, and I'm using a 6-link bow. Now, granted, I do have +2 to level of socketed support skills and empower, which won't be the case, and this is only a level 3 empower anyway. I won't have this, but I will have a 6-link bow with +1 level to socketed gems, and I will probably use Predator as my 6th link rather than empower in the beginning. But other than that, we'll have Herald of Agony, Pierce, probably Vicious Projectiles, definitely damage on full life, minion damage, and Predator. So it'll be a little different from the setup I have here. And I'm also using bows, which means I'm going to need some accuracy. So I'm currently using Juggernaut. Juggernaut gives us a couple of useful things. It gives us the ability to generate endurance charges very easily. And we can do a cast on damage taken immortal call with that, which is very nice. And gives us a lot of accuracy. It can't be chilled, can't be stunned is also very incredible. So Juggernaut is great. Other than that, I'm taking Champion. Champion is going to give Taunt and Intimidate, both of which will give 10% bonus damage to the enemies. More damage multipliers for a Scorpion. Very, very strong. And yeah, with the setup I'm using, it's Rain of Arrows with Poison, Blood Magic, faster attacks, and life gain on hit. You can drop probably the faster attacks to begin with. And I have here the methods that you're going to get your 6-link bow. And it's very, very easy. There are 2 particular divination cards, Porcupine and Imperial Legacy. Imperial Legacy is going to be easier to get. It is 22 cards, I believe, in order to make it, which is a lot more than Porcupine 6, but it's also much more common, and you can start farming it very early. It's going to be very cheap, so you can buy the cards you don't get, or you can self-farm. This is very solo self-found viable. So you can find these in the Vistiri Desert, Oasis, or Foothills, or in the maps Desert, Desert Spring, Dunes, and Pillars of Arun. These are incredibly common. I like Dunes personally out of these maps. I hate Desert, so I'd prefer not to farm Desert, but if it's the low tier one and I got to do it, then I'm going to do it. And then the Porcupine you can find in the High Gardens, and then in maps you can find it in Gardens, Plaza, and Terrace. So, and I'll get into, I have some gearing stuff in here, including some different builds you can do non-Ascendant. Necromancer is very viable with this. However, I've done some testing with it, and it is certainly less good. So, I also have a guide to my other build. I'll put an annotation and I'll put it into the description below, because I actually swapped all of my gear over to a Necromancer to test it. So I'll be going over there to show the gear that I intend on using. But once I get my setup where I'm not using Rain of Arrows anymore, I'm going to be using brands in order to proc my poisons, because they're very easy to just slap onto an enemy and run around and avoid mechanics. So once I get that done, I'll actually move over probably to Raider, because it gives dodge, as well as Onslaught and Frenzy Charge Generation, which will cause my brands to proc more frequently, and the movement speed is nice as well. And it also gives me access to Path of the Ranger, which is going to allow me to go through this life, which is really nice. Get down here, go through this life, get the dodge and evasion up here, and it'll get me a lot closer to Wind Dancer, which is a very, very powerful node, and I don't have it set up here, and I probably won't have Wind Dancer to begin with, but once I make the transition into better gear, the Cold Iron Points, and Coming Calamity, I will be doing that. Also, before you have the Coming Calamity, you have to take reduced mana reservation, unfortunately. So as you can see, with Hatred and a 6-link Herald of Agony, Hatred will not be run in the later version since we'll be switching to Impale once we get Cluster Jewels, specifically Rotten Claws, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. But we'll have Charisma and Sovereignty. So we get both of those. That'll give us all of the mana reservation we need in order to run our 6-link Herald of Agony. You won't need both of them right away until you get your 6-link, but it's probably better to just pick them up so you can start running Hatred right away with your 4-link. So probably just we'll be swinging over this way to get enough decks anyway in the early game, so may as well just grab Charisma while we're over here. So grab that. And yeah, this is like the scuffed beginning version of the tree, but I just wanted to show it. So as long as there's no avoid poison, which is the only annoying thing that you can really get, we can run no regen, we can run reflect. There's the only annoying one is that enemies have increased chance to avoid ailments, so poison and stuff, which makes it really hard to keep. And I'm also using the golden rule. I should probably, on both of them, it allows us to keep up 40 virulence stacks much easier. But yeah, we're fairly tanky. The other version of the build is tankier. Wind Dancer is incredible. You should be running Wind Dancer in any dodge evasion build if you can. It's just so good. Gear's real bad. It's just life and resistances. There's literally like no minion damage, no plus levels. Gear has evolved a lot since back in the day, so things are just better in general. So real basic gear, but it'll be enough to get you into endgame. So I'll show you the next version of the build, and it's using 1 cold iron point. I should probably use 2, but we get +2 to minion skill gem levels. You can actually get a shield with +1 to physical, which will actually put our Herald of Agony back up to 29, which would put it at equal level with double cold iron point, and 31 if you do decide not to run block, which is pretty dangerous. So currently I'm running a block version, but this version, the major difference is besides block, and if I'm staying Ascendant probably, then I'll be running the dodge and Wind Dancer for my defensive mechanic, and it'll be way different than this. But the one similarity, besides the gear, is that I'll be running Pure Agonies and Rotten Claws, as well as Stormbrand in order to proc my poison. So I got Stormbrand, Arcane Surge, faster casting, lesser poison, and socketed gems are supported by poison. And I'm running Hitsiri Step for some reason. But yeah, the Coming Calamity and 1 or 2 cold iron points are the big difference in this build. So we got that. And then the other big difference is Rotten Claws, and we got Pure Agonies. You can run 4 Pure Agonies if you want, with Dread Banner and the Impale support, because this is running Herald of Agony, Pierce, minion damage, damage on full life, Predator, and Impale. Impale is very powerful. We can, without the Divergent Impale, or the Divergent War Banner, sorry, we can only get up to 90% Impale chance without a 3rd Rotten Claws, which is kind of hard to fit in. You can do it. I tried a tree where I got down here and did a 3rd Rotten Claws, but it just felt like too much of a stretch. My life was too low. Like, my life is pretty low as it is, but my life was just too low, and I'm still running the Golden Rule. Golden Rule is very powerful in this, helps you keep a lot of poisons up, and then I just have some, like, generic jewels. Some minions have attack speed, some blind chance from minions, gives a little bit more defense. And then, yeah, so I'm running Flesh and Stone. Might not be able to run Flesh and Stone. I mean, if you have a reduced mana reservation shield or something, you would. But they're actually increasing the mana reservation to 35% from 25%, because the blind and reduction from distanced enemies is pretty insane. So It's very, very powerful. But yeah, we're running Dread Banner in this for more Impale chance. So we got 90% chance to Impale. Also using Circle of Nostalgia. You can get up to 100% Agony Crawler damage on this. And then the Chaos Resistance is really nice, which is something I should have mentioned earlier. But having some Chaos Resistance so that when we're poisoning, we're not overwhelming ourselves with poison damage. That's also why I have Lesser Poison at level 1, which only does 1 to 2 chaos damage. So keep Lesser Poison at level 1, and it still does 25 to 44 scaled up. Alright, cool, Delirium. We'll see how this works. Because defensively, the block is much less powerful than the dodge if you don't have like some method of... And I should have more... I should also be having some more defensive flasks on this build. Cold Iron points are kind of expensive in the beginning. Ooh, Superior Enhanced level 3. Nice. Nice. Well, that's pretty good. I can just, like, ball that. See if I can get a level 4 one right off the bat. Put it that way. Alright, so here's our single target against the map boss. We throw down our Predator... Oh, I'm bad. And our Poacher's Mark, or Sniper's Mark. And yeah, it's a lot better. The kill speed is a lot better. I think this one was something along the lines of like 2.8 million DPS with just the two pure agonies, and so only 50 and level 28. It's like 3.6 million with 2 cold iron points on a not on a necromancer, but on an ascendant. So with 2 cold iron points on an ascendant, we're looking at a little bit better DPS overall. Ball slam this enhance, see if I can get myself a level 4 enhance, just for the fun of it. Aw. No go. Sad day. Oh well. So yeah, that's pretty much an explanation of what I think is going to be a good league starter. Pretty powerful, not very gear dependent. The gear that you do want for the later portion of the build is going to be very attainable. Coming Calamity is always very cheap. Circle of Nostalgias with all the Xana changes and people running those non-stop, very cheap. Cold Iron points, very cheap just from the beginning. So all the gear... It's going to be super cheap, like probably less than an Exalt to fully gear up your character by time like day 3 or 4 rolls around. So if you're a little bit of a slower level, you can actually just go straight into the Coming Calamity Cold Iron Point. I'll put a link to the full build of the Ascendant version of this in the description below and in the annotation. This has been Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming, and I will see you next time. Bye!